Okay, resuming the Town of Barnstable Waterways Committee workshop meeting for the 18th of March, 2025. We have committee members Greg Egan, Gary Schramek, Jacob Angelo, myself, Paul Larison, present with Brian Taylor, Harbor Master, and Jay Horn, the Deputy Harbor Master for the Town of Barnstable. Okay, resuming, we had just started.
No, we got to start. We got to go all the way from the beginning.
Okay. So, in that case, before we get going here, I need to advise that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast on Channel 18 and in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20. I must inquire if anybody is taping this meeting. If so, please make their presence. Okay, resuming the agenda, after our call to order, can you scroll that up? There we go. Thank you. Mooring regulations discussion. We're going to have Deputy Harbor Master comments first.
Yeah, again, I just want to thank the committee for being here tonight, taking the time to do this workshop, discuss some of these mooring regulations, wait list data that's been presented already, and discuss the topic of mooring usage. Getting right into it, the recent events caused me to look at the licensed mooring servicer regulations. We're going to make a minor change in the verbiage, first and foremost. Instead of having it as a licensed mooring servicer, we're going to be calling it a permitted mooring servicer. As I previously stated, currently every license or permitted mooring servicer needs to renew annually. They have to sign a form, pay their $100 fee, and choose the areas that they're going to be covering for that calendar year. We're not going to be changing any of that. What we are going to be suggesting to the committee as a regulation change is that these permitted servicers have a business license, whether it's an LLC, sole proprietorship, etc., and that they also have required limited liability insurance at a $250,000 minimum. I've been told these policies are fairly inexpensive to have as a business. It's good insurance for them. It's good insurance for the town. And these regulations would hopefully go into effect for 2026. I want to open this up to the committee now, to the public, if they have any comments on requiring this moving forward.
Okay, Jay, thank you. My first question's off right now. What is the current liability threshold that any of these services have to have?
We don't require it right now, Mr. Chairman. And I did call around to several other towns, and 250 seems to be the minimum that other towns are requiring.
Okay, and I guess for the harbor master, any of these proposed regulation changes would go through the normal channel of approval through the town?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm going to present them to the committee, ask them to vote on them. They will go to the legal department. They'll go to the town manager. There'll be a public meeting for any public comment. So it'd be through the usual channels, yes.
Okay. Any other committee members with an opinion on this?
Yeah, this is Greg. I was before we got cut off there. I just have a comment on the second bullet item, required to have a business license, LLC, sole proprietorship, etc. So, those can be looked at as like sort of different. That's confusing. It's not clear what that means. I know what the intent is. So what's the ownership profile or what's the setup of the ownership? That's the second part of that. The first part, required to have a business license. I'm not sure that there's a specific license that somebody would get. They could provide their ownership sort of documents, but business license is kind of like generic, and so we want to make sure we don't require something that the town doesn't issue. And so I'm not sure the town issues a business license. I just suggest we look a little further into that.
Yeah, that's great feedback. We want to make sure that they're a registered business, right? I mean, you have Marina, are you registered with the state or are you an LLC? How does it work for Crosby's?
The LLCs and the sole proprietorships have to have a federal identification number, an EIN is what they call it. And that should be registered with the Secretary of
Fire.
the state under the corporations division.
Yeah, I agree. That wasn't. This is Greg. That wasn't me. Who you answered about Crosby. That wasn't me. But I agree with whoever just spoke.
It was Gary.
Oh, okay, Gary. Yeah, and so they're really two separate things. What's written there, and I'm not a lawyer, but I just, you know, I think it's good to get some of this information. But as I said, you know, an EIN number is not a business license, and so it needs clarity.
All right. Thank you, Greg and Gary. I'll be sure to look into that. When I called other towns, they said, yeah, we require a business license, you know, and it was kind of just left at that. But I'm sure that's something my legal department could address with us as well.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. Anything further? I like the idea of having some sort of the liability policy because in these days, I'm surprised that's not a requirement already. Okay, any other Deputy Harbor Master comments?
Yeah, we're just going to move right along unless anyone else has any other suggestions about that. Onto the waitlist data, I presented this to you. The numbers changed a little bit in terms of the people currently on the waitlist. Every year, X amount of people don't renew their position. The numbers drop off. Throughout the year, people join, they go back up. That's just a cycle of the department. So right now there's 1,200 people, 1,274 currently on the mooring wait list. 600 individuals have been added since 2022. 250 individuals on wait list currently already have a mooring and or a slip within the town of Barnstable. That's some new data that I'm presenting tonight. I was able to run a custom report to obtain that. The real issue is this: 2024, 73% of individuals who were offered a mooring either passed or didn't respond at all. 2023, that number was 70%. 2022, it was 72%. So I'm here to ask the committee and the public for suggestions on what they think we can do to fix this issue.
Okay. How many other bullet points do you have? And then maybe we can go back to any of these other things you've just mentioned.
This is it on the wait list data. Yeah, moving on to a new subject after this.
Okay. I know.
This is Gary. Do we have a sense of how many attempts or how many years the individuals have passed on it? Do we want to
I'm
look at
sorry,
that
Gary.
criteria?
I presented that last time. These figures
Yeah.
are based off of people who have passed consistently the last 3 to 4 years in a row. Those percentages are based off of only people who have passed 3 or 4 years consecutively. Comes out to about 295 individuals. For 300 people on the wait list basically are not taking a mooring and haven't taken one in the past 3 or 4 years.
I mean, if someone hasn't done it in 4 years, I mean, at that point, or even 3 years, we should maybe have some kind of cutoff point where we give them a notification. Either they do it for the next or the following season, or they're off. I mean, 4 years, that's a long time to.
Yeah, I agree.
This is Greg. I just have a question. Just stepping back a bit, what do we do? Um, to the harbor master. So what actually is the problem? Because if they pass, you go down to the list to the next person. So by them passing, it doesn't mean that they're taking up anything that wouldn't be gotten by the next person. So they're expressing interest in staying on. They're paying a fee. They're renewing it annually, so they have some interest in it. So I guess not a wise guy question, but why is it a problem? I'm trying to understand from the bigger picture.
Yeah, so there's two issues. The first one is the time associated with this. These 300 people are all located in the front of every one of my wait lists. That's where the problem is right now. So, for example, in Hyannisport, I have to email 60 people before I can get to the one person who actually wants to take a mooring. So the time is a factor. This data has helped me recognize where my dead weight is, so to speak. And I tend to send out group emails now and kind of try to get through this process faster because historically I know they're most likely not going to take a mooring. But I still have to wait 5 days per the regulations for their response before I can move on. So time is one of the issues. I spend about the first month of offerings just emailing people who won't take a mooring. That aside, my real issue with it is that most of these wait lists are closed. We have a limited number of people that can be on them. And the way I view it is it's not really fair and equitable to all when these individuals are hoarding positions, not taking a mooring, and then they're stopping other people from ultimately getting on that list who do want a mooring. So I think that's my bigger issue with it. The time thing, I can kind of deal with. It's not ideal. I think the real issue is that we have people who just won't take a mooring. That sometimes I've looked into a few individuals on the top of the list, and this has been going on for a decade now. I have about, again, I don't have the time to go through our old software, but just the ones that I spot checked, I found a dozen people that have been declining for over a decade. So I want to get the list moving. I want people on there to take a mooring, and I want people who aren't on the list to be able to get on the list, and that's kind of my end goal here.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful to get an analysis of that. I was thinking prior to your second point, if they passed over a certain amount of years, put them on the bottom of the list. But really, we're trying to open the list to people who really want a mooring. So it makes a lot of sense, and I see why you're bringing this up now. Thank you.
Yep.
One of the possibilities we have discussed before was the three strikes you're out. If you pass after 3 years, been offered 3 times, then either put them to the back of the list, take them off the list. Taking them off the list would actually open up a spot, through your wait list, or put them to the back of the list if that list is still open. If it's a closed list, then the possibility of taking them completely off, and if they really want to be on the list, then go back to a lottery to get back on. But that's getting complicated as well. I know it's probably been at least 4 years. I think we've discussed that possibility, how to move the deadwood, so to speak, from the top. Chances are somebody may be offered for the very first year. They're not in a position to fulfill it. And, for whatever reason, we've heard different reasons before. But after 3 years, it's kind of to the point where, they need to be moved, and whether it's off the top and like Greg says, you can move them off the top if they're still interested in paying the fee. And if it's not that much administrative work, then, just keep on moving them. Any other members have a feeling on this?
Yeah, I'd like to suggest what Gary said with 1 year, just because passing 3 times doesn't necessarily mean you passed for 3 years. So that can just still that 3 years is a lot of time, even if it is consecutive. So, um, and I've grown up in this time where this glut has happened, and a lot of people my age or know about it, and there's just a lot of people clogging up the list and not using it. So it's a list to wait for it, and you're on it in anticipation to get one. So if something happens, you get one shot. That seems, I guess, reasonable. But yeah, that's all I got to say.
Okay, Jacob, thank you. Anybody else? All right, Jake.
DJ Crook, I'd like to say something.
Go ahead, sir.
Um, Jay, do you think it's mainly like people just don't have a boat yet? Or, um, if, because I wouldn't expect, if people have been on for decades, I'm assuming they're just not prepared to use it, or don't have something to use it, and they're just sitting on the wait list. I mean, I understand definitely that it's holding a lot of people up. You know, I I'm a fan of the idea of whatever strikes. I'm currently on a couple wait lists, and I fish every day and every day for 8 years, and sometimes I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. So um, I'm for whatever plan to help make that list move.
Yeah, and you kind of brought up a good point. I guess you would call it the psychological factor, but I get phone calls weekly, monthly in the summertime complaining about how the wait list isn't moving. And it's moving quite well actually in the past 3 or 4 years. The issue is that these individuals pull up, their mooring field or, any mooring field in the town, and what they're seeing is the first 20, 30, 40 people on that list year after year. And it gives the illusion that that list is not moving, when in fact, like Mr. Egan was saying, the middle of the list is moving. The back of the list is moving up as people are awarded moorings. But seeing those same names at the front year after year isn't a good look for the town, in my opinion. It looks like we're not performing and we're not doing our job.
Yeah, my apologies for making it seem like I didn't understand. I understand. I kind of went off point there, but yeah, I mean, I agree that holding those people liable to those front positions is definitely something the town could improve on, and yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
I had a discussion with Harbor Master Taylor about this today, and I think what we're going to do to really be fair to everyone is we're going to send out a letter this fall and kind of identify those individuals. I think we're going to send it to everybody on the wait list just to keep it fair. But my first attempt is just going to be to ask nicely. If you're on the list and you have no intent of taking a mooring in that field that you're on, we're going to kindly ask that individual just to not renew their position for 2026 and see what kind of results we get from that. Going back to the other thing DJ asked about, why is this? It started a long time ago when these wait lists were all open, and what people did, and I mentioned this in the last meeting, is they kind of just joined every list that we had as a numbers game, hoping that they could kind of take the first available mooring that they would come up with, depending on how quickly that list moved. So there's a lot of that. I have a lot of individuals on there that are on multiple lists that don't take a mooring in any of those locations. And a lot of those individuals already have a mooring, where they want one in the ideal location where they want to be. So I think what we're going to do right now, because this is a hard decision, I think we're going to have to revisit it. My first recourse of action is just going to be to ask nicely, send out a letter this fall, see what kind of results we get, and then go from there.
Well, I would not be against further discussions about this as far as, what we have talked about before, 3 strikes, you're out. And unless they have cause, whether it be an illness that precludes them or something of that nature. But if it's just somebody, in particular, you just struck a point, if they're on multiple lists and they currently have moorings and they're passing on multiple lists, something needs to be done about that. That's a logjam.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time, and I hope I clarified this a little bit more. The good news is we started the process and we're talking about it, and I think that's great as far as the public is concerned. I didn't think anyone paid attention to these meetings, but I get stopped all the time, and people comment about things they heard. So if anything, I think presenting this tonight is good for the public and good for any future decision that we might make. Last topic, gentlemen, and again, I really appreciate your time. The vacant mooring issue and hot topic. It's been a decade-long problem. It's been a problem for decades. Number one complaint here at my office. So just wanted to let everyone know that starting in 2025, we will be collecting data on vacant moorings. Before the phone starts ringing off the hook, it's just for informational purposes. I am not in the position to take anybody's mooring away from them. My thoughts on the wait list versus the moorings are completely separate and opposite, if you want to go there. So we will not be penalizing anybody for vacant moorings. The plan is I'm going to go out at 5 o'clock in the morning, July 1st, August 1st, September 1st. I'm starting with 2 of my bigger mooring fields. I'm going to GIS the empty moorings that I come across at that time of day. And then I'm going to compare that data over the course of the summer to see, was that mooring essentially vacant, those 3 times that I went out there, July 1st, August 1st, September 1st. I want to run right through the course of the season and just get an estimate on how many moorings aren't being used. We don't know right now. We don't know what that percentage is. So that's kind of the game plan for this summer. I'm going to do that 3 years in a row. I'm going to pick different mooring fields, and I feel like the percentage is gonna line up between these mooring fields. I feel like it's going to be very close to one another when we're said and done. But I'm curious, and I want to know how big of an issue it is, and that's going to be my attempt to try to collect some of that data. Options for usage are the third party, which the committee has heard about before. Required dates for vessel, and then I have a new item I wanted to present tonight called the out of water fee. So I do ask people who I know aren't using their moorings, what's the reasoning behind it, and the top 4 are divorced. There was a forced sale of the vessel, and that individual needs time to financially recover. There's a desire to transfer to their children, through inheritance of the property one day and passing that mooring on to their immediate family members. Age is a major factor. People get to the point where they're physically unable to safely boat anymore. And the wait times always come up. I hear a lot that, I just don't want to give it up because I know I can never get it again. Those are a lot of the reasons that I hear. I heard about the third party rental a couple of years ago. I did some research on it. I wasn't a fan right off the bat. It's problematic for Barnstable. I don't have to tell you guys how large of an area that we cover, 27 different mooring fields. And the fact that we already have a rental mooring program that's established with its own wait list. Allowing a third-party rental, in my opinion, without another wait list is really not fair and equitable to all. The way other towns are managing this kind of blows my mind. They're essentially not. I won't name anybody, but what they do is they let the two individuals work it out amongst themselves. So somebody hears that so-and-so isn't using their mooring. They approach them, they ask them if they can be the third party rental. And then once that deal is made, they go to the harbor master office and they fill out the necessary paperwork. And I don't like this for a lot of reasons. I feel like it opens up a bidding war for moorings that aren't being used. And I feel that it's going to hurt the wait list in the end, because now the person who might give up their mooring because they aren't using it all of a sudden is able to rent it and possibly receive money for doing so. Lastly, we have regulations in place which limit the number of rental moorings in the town, and this would exceed that. And then, there's the liability issues involved. So-and-so mooring was not inspected, wasn't inspected in time. Somebody puts their boat on it, and it breaks loose. So that's kind of the third party rental. Does anyone have anything to say about that? Does anybody like that idea or have any comments in regards to that?
This is Greg. It seems to me that it's a moot point if you needed to comply with the original requirements of your first slide. To rent moorings, you gotta, be permitted by the town and all of those requirements. It would seem, whether it's unintentional or intentional, it would preclude the concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus the liability end of that too. As you pointed out, Jay, if the town is issuing that mooring permit and the permit holder sublets it to somebody else and the vessel that is on it causes damage and extensive damage, or causes an injury or something like that, the liability end of it, I'm sure, would transcend to the person renting it and then ultimately back to the town possibly. So probably not a good idea.
All right. Moving on. Another topic, and this is done by other towns, but there's the possibility of regulating mooring usage by requiring a vessel for a specific amount of time. Again, I know other towns do this. I know they enforce it, but they have the luxury of having one mooring field or having two mooring fields where, the total number is only 400 permits within the whole town. So for me, this is problematic for Barnstable, again, when considering our size. And I don't know how I can enforce this, to be honest with you. If I go out on a Saturday and start checking vacant moorings and I mark somebody vacant and, I tell them, hey, you're going to lose your mooring because you weren't using it. And he said, I was on the vineyard that day. It's very hard for me to enforce, and I don't feel comfortable requiring usage in this town when I can't monitor it and enforce it. But if anybody has any suggestions in regards to this on how we could do that, I'm open to hear them.
I would think, Jay, that this would almost follow your survey as to when you're going out to check the percentage of vacant moorings in your mooring fields.
Yeah, I mean, specifically for the vacant mooring data, I'm going out at daybreak. I'm going out at 5 a.m. because I feel like the vast majority of people aren't boating yet. Sure, we're going to have some early morning fishermen, but I think it'll give me a good idea at that time of day, who is not using their mooring. In terms of requiring usage, and other towns do 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know how I would do that during our normal business hours because again, people boat 7 days a week, people boat during the weekdays. And the sheer number of mooring fields that I have, I just don't know how I would monitor that without an exceptional amount of seasonal staff.
Okay.
All right, this is a new idea, and I'm just throwing it out there. I call it the out of water fee. The OWF will allow individuals to maintain a mooring permit with the town of Barnstable, but they're not going to be required to physically place their mooring in the water. They must renew and pay the annual fee. They're not required to have a vessel attached to the permit. There will be a minimum requirement of 3 to 5 years to be determined. And this is still a valid permit that can be transferred to any immediate family member. How it works, I've been using RT99 as an example. The permit holder notifies the office. They are literally giving up their physical location. They're giving up that permanent mooring number. They're hauling their mooring from the water. RT99 is changed in our system to OWF RT99. It's timestamped when it's changed. And then we take RT99 and we offer that mooring to the next person on the wait list. This isn't a temporary solution. That individual is now permitted for life or as long as they continue to renew the mooring. They renew it annually, they pay their annual fee, they can still transfer it. They cannot re-enter the mooring field before the allotted time, 3 to 5 years. They must notify the harbor master when they want to re-enter the field. And typically that happens around April 1st every year. OWF RT99 has priority over existing waitlist holders when re-entering the field. Why? They've been through the process and they've already waited 10 to 20 years to receive a mooring. They have given up their location, and as a result, somebody has already permanently been removed from the wait list. At that time, when they choose to re-enter, they will be assigned a new permanent mooring number in the field that they came from. They're not going to be allowed to change mooring fields or anything like that. The reality in Barnstable is that most other towns is that individuals are holding on to their permits for life, sometimes decades after they have stopped voting. When asked why, the most common responses are, I've waited so long to get it. I know I can never get one again. Or I want to transfer it to my son or daughter, but they don't live on the Cape right now. As mooring officer, I deal with a large number of permits annually that are not renewed as a result of individuals being deceased. The vast majority of these permits do not get transferred. I facilitate 1 to 3 transfers annually post-death. I feel like the OWF is a viable solution to these individuals as it offers the security of knowing that they still have a permit and it can be transferred even in the event after a death. From my experience as mooring officer and the data I have on these transfers, I can foresee that the majority of these OWF permits will organically fall off, that they're not going to be renewed. And I have so many examples of this. There's a gentleman who works for the department right now. He was offered a slip first. He took it. He was offered a mooring at the Katua Town Dock. That was 13 years ago. And in that 13 years, he never had a boat on the mooring. He renewed it every year. The mooring was in the water. He had the hope that one of his daughters would, take the mooring. And, basically they all refused. So 13 years later, he finally gave that mooring up this year. And I think that's a great example of, where this OWF, could work. It gives people the option of letting it go because nobody wants it, or if their son or daughter does want it, then we're going to allow them to come back into the mooring field. And lastly is, when they do re-enter the mooring field, yes, we're giving them priority over the existing waitlist holder, however, we have already removed an individual from the same list permanently. So it's a kind of a plus minus zero at that point. I know that might have been a lot and confusing. If you guys have any questions on that, just let me know. I'd like to hear comments from the committee or public on that.
Jay, how many people do you think, if you took your entire mooring field like that, any sense of an idea of how many people that that would take advantage of something like that? Or is this just kind of out there?
I think once people understand it, I think we're going to be in the hundreds. There's a lot of advantages for the mooring permit holder. And I'm literally targeting my older individuals who are on the fence right now. They don't want to give it up. They're keeping the hope that one of their, children will take it, but their children don't live on Cape or whatever the reason might be. I think over the course of a couple of years, there's going to be hundreds of people who sign up for this program. And it works either way, gentlemen. Best case scenario, I guess, for the department is the OWF falls off. They end up not renewing it. But we're still giving them that option if they do want to transfer it or get back into boating at some point. Like in the case of a divorce, then they can do that. They're going to be allowed back in. So I think it solves both issues.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Well, go ahead, Jacob.
I understand what you're saying in your idea, but like in the very off chance that it goes the opposite way and all these people decide that they do want to get back in the water and the mooring list is full, or the mooring is full, and you have like a lot of people that want to get in there, then what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think people are going to pick and choose based on the knowledge they have of the mooring field. Like, for example, if you were in Eel River, you probably wouldn't sign up for this program because not a lot of moorings become available there. I see maybe one permit in Eel River a year. But when we're talking about Lewis Bay, Hyannisport, the Katuah Town Dock, even Prince Cove, you're talking 6, 10, 12 moorings. Katuah Town Dock can have 15 people who don't renew every year on average. So I think the percentages are in our favor. And again, we're going to require that they sign up for this for a minimum of, at least 3 years, somewhere in the 3 to 5 year range. So I think as they stagger in, and they sign up for this program, then that's going to kind of have them re-entering at different times as well. I don't really foresee that happening, but again, we've already took somebody off of the wait list. We've already, they've given up their physical location. We've pulled somebody from the wait list. So I feel like it's fair and equitable to let them back in when they want to re-enter and they notify us.
I'm just picturing like the only thing like a COVID situation where everyone's, flooding the water again and oh yeah, I need the mooring, hey, I got that thing. And like all of a sudden you're just like inundated with, you have the mooring already full, everybody already wants a mooring, and then you have all these people that are on this. And I know you said 3 or 4 years, but COVID could be 3 or 4 years, or they just start the process and you know what I'm saying? That's all.
Yeah, no, it's a valid concern. I think they're they're gonna be told that when they sign up for it, that
Mhm.
yes, we're gonna let them back in, but there has to be a spot available. I just can't make a
Okay.
location for them when they want to re-enter.
Okay. Is that the end of your comments on that, Chief?
It is, yes.
Okay. And we've kind of put in the waterways comments as we go on this. Just one question everybody's probably wondering, the fee did not go up this year. What do you anticipate for next year?
Gentlemen, I don't see the fee going up anytime soon. In fact, I mean, again, I'd have to look at our budget, but I don't foresee the permit fee going up anytime for years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not that that would make a difference to anybody considering if you were going to do this out of water program, if it was going to rise, in the exponentially in the near future, then, that would be a consideration as well. Okay. Any other members with other questions on this?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I have something I want to talk about pertaining to the mooring regulations.
Okay, go ahead, Jacob.
So, as you may not notice, that there's some aquaculturists and commercial fishermen here. We work on the water, just as much as the commercial, the marine construction companies and the mooring construction companies. And we're looking to try to get commercial moorings for fishermen, commercial fishermen, and for aquaculturists that have a legitimate limited entry business for their boats and everything. We were thinking something that, if you had multiple boats and multiple moorings for multiple different things, you could interchange them throughout the moorings that you have to make it easier for, on the business. And also, the business, if it's sold, could be sold with the moorings, so that the person that bought the business would have access to the, same. Basically, the business is on the water, so you kind of need the access to the water. And if somebody, for example, in a like a lobster business or something like that, somebody oftentimes may buy the boat and the license and just choose to go somewhere else in another town or another state, and in that point, the mooring would just go back on the list in that situation, unless it's a hometown person. Um, and then and, that's pretty much about it, I think. And I noticed that at a couple meetings ago, Jay mentioned that he's been adding about 50 moorings for the past 4 years. So it's a lot of extra moorings. So I don't think this is people that already have moorings that are working on the water all year long and just trying to make, it easier on them and their business to facilitate what they do out every day.
Jay, you want to comment about the commercial moorings and our number of what we have and where we're at?
Yeah, I did some investigating after the last meeting. Nate Van Duzer is going to be joining us, this Waterways Committee, applying for a commercial mooring. Typically, you can, request a commercial mooring whether or not you have a existing permit already. That decision is based on your needs, the location, and ultimately that would come in front of the Waterways Committee. I've said this before to my guys on the north side in Cape Cod Bay. I have very difficult time permitting people in Barnstable Harbor East, where Billy Lister's out there, Muscle Point. So if anybody wanted a commercial mooring in that location, that's a very easy sell in regards to this department and potentially the Waterways Committee, just because I have difficulty, filling up that mooring field. When you look at an area like Scudder Lane, it's a lot more difficult. I physically have room to put more moorings at Scudder Lane, but the shellfish technicians would have my head on a stake. I just can't kind of impede on that shellfish habitat and expand any further than the blueprint that I have in already. Ideally, though, if anybody has an individual mooring permit in this town and they have a business and they want to make that a commercial mooring permit, that's an ideal situation because we're not cutting in front of anybody on the wait list when we do that. So, for example, we're going to have another gentleman in Hyannisport coming this meeting who's going to be requesting commercial mooring. He has a rental boat business. He already has an individual mooring permit in that field, and he just wants to change the designation to commercial, which I would support in that circumstance. But I think we need to look at them individually, the needs of the business, and the demand for the particular mooring field that they want to put that commercial mooring in.
Thank you.
All right, Jay, thanks. And it's also probably a good time to mention, because I know we do it probably twice a year, that to inform people that are purchasing homes, new homes or homes on the water, they do not come, despite what they may be told by real estate folks or something, they do not come with the mooring that was currently in front of the house or that the person had there. So just as a friendly reminder, I know we do it at least a couple times a year. You do not, when you buy a property that has a mooring, you do not get the mooring. They can physically sell you the tackle if they wanted, but they cannot sell you that mooring spot.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Hold on for 1 second, sir.
Yep.
Any other committee members with any other comments they want to bring forward at this time? Okay, hearing nothing, go ahead, Mr. Rogan.
Hi, yeah, I was just curious what I guess constitutes a commercial mooring, like what designation is different than just if I was in like, you're an individual mooring permit holder.
Yeah, a commercial mooring is designated for businesses and it's for usage by the business. So we do have several licensed servicers that have commercial moorings. And in that case, what they do is when they need to service somebody's mooring, whether it be replace the chain or completely haul it up for an inspection, they'll take that individual's boat, they'll put it on that commercial mooring, and then they'll make the necessary repairs to that permit holder. And then when they're finished and the mooring's back in the water, they'll take the boat off of that commercial mooring, put it back on the permit holder's mooring. We have stipulations, vessels can't be on there for longer than 2 weeks. So it's not ideal if you wanted to put a barge on there. That's more of an individual mooring permit in terms of the usage. Even though you have a commercial vessel on there, individual mooring gives you the right to keep that vessel on there throughout the year. Whereas a commercial mooring, we limit it to 2 weeks.
And Jay, do we have Army Corps regulations regards to the commercials?
Those are town regulations. Those are written in our regulations. Army Corps deals with the transient moorings. They have to be permitted through the Army Corps whenever you want to do a transient mooring.
Okay, thank you.
So I think what we're looking for is a little bit different from what you described, because we're looking to keep our boats on there more than 14 days, but have flexibility in that regard with the company's boats. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian
So-
Taylor, Harbor Master. That'd probably be a different type of conversation. I mean, the original design of a commercial mooring, it's actually called a commercial yard mooring permit, was for these commercial entities in the boat yards for temporary working of vessels or working on moorings to store vessels in different locations. But right now, outside of rental, transient, commercial yard mooring permits or individual permits, we don't really have a permit that speaks to that.
No, that's what I'm looking to, looking to talk about and then, draft and figure out if we can do something like that. Cause there's a lot of us aquaculturists and commercial fishermen that need to use certain boat, have multiple boats that need to use certain boats in certain spots at certain times and have multiple moorings. So, it would be you could have the moorings underneath the business and then the boats listed there as well, so that there's two moorings and three boats, and those boats are interchangeable with those two moorings, so that we don't have to just call every time and or break a regulation or say, oh, I can't really do that. Is kind of what we're looking for.
Jacob, the major issue with that is that, we'd be allowing people to cut to the front of the wait list effectively, and it opens the floodgates for people without integrity to, start an LLC called Johnny's Fishing Charters, right? And ask for a
Sure.
commercial mooring, for the year.
Yeah.
And then, really it's just him and his buddies going out fishing.
No.
They're not running a legitimate operation.
Yeah, you could limit it to, the aquaculturists in the town and limited entry fisheries, which are legitimate fisheries. It's not going to get a bluefin tuna permit for $25 online on your way in, or it's not a rod and reel Massachusetts license that you can just go and get. It would be a legitimate limited entry. Only so many of these permits exist for, either commercial fishing or aquaculture. That would limit it significantly because the people that are involved in the business have these permits, and the people that you're describing don't have these permits.
Well, just
Yeah,
like
I think this is going to require some further discussion, but
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
think we were gonna settle anything tonight, but this is, I think, something that a lot of people would really be interested in, and it really helps fortify our working waterfront and our seafood industry. That's a huge deal in this town.
100%. And it's something definitely we'd have to actually explore with the state in order to do that because
that's
we
what I
do have
was going to
established
say
wait
next.
lists. Yeah. So again,
That
even
would be taking existing moorings though, like, because you said that you could take an existing mooring and putting into a commercial mooring, but like it would just be adding it. It's a commercial, whatever seafood mooring, if you want to call it that. It would be a new thing that you guys make. And then instead of transferring it to just a personal to commercial mooring, it'd be personal to this kind of mooring. That would, allow us to do what we need to do.
I think we could explore that as long as it was an already permitted mooring in a certain
Yeah.
location. 100%. It's, a good topic to bring up, especially tonight with the workshop and some of these topics that, Jay brought up with the outside out of the water permit. Some of those things we have to discuss with the state and legal as well. But he's just trying to come up with ideas because the Waterways Committee has brought forward issues, obviously, with the wait lists. And every single year we hear issues with individuals stating that the moorings aren't being used. So we're just trying to kind of think outside of the
Oh, I
box.
agree with all that. Yeah.
Sounds
I
like
agree
that's
with
what
all
you're
that.
doing.
Mhm.
But we can certainly, I think some of these matters need to be discussed. Probably with the state before moving even forward with town legal or forward with the Waterways Committee for actual regulation changes.
Could could I make a comment on that? It's Tyler Hagenstein.
Yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
Thanks. Yeah, just to build on what Jake was saying, it's kind of the reason a lot of us are here, just to kind of help our fishing careers. Having moorings on the north side and the south side would be beneficial for a lot of reasons, especially due to some new shellfish regulations in the last couple of years. But if you guys would like a reference point, as to kind of what we're talking about as far as limited entry permits and yeah, limited entry permitting for Sandwich Marina, they have a commercial wait list for this exact thing, but it's for slips, so it's a little different. Um, but yeah, it's guys that are fully invested on the water, have limited entry permits, lobster, fish pots, draggers, these kinds of things, and that will weed out every charter business that runs 3 charters a year, 12 charters a year, or whatever it is, or somebody saying they have a striped bass permit and calling it commercial fishing. So that's how they handle it over there. Just give you a reference.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And I would just like to reiterate that we're not looking to make a separate list or anything. We'd like the lists the way they are, and if they move better with Jay's suggestions, that's great. But the existing moorings that we have, we would like to figure out a way to, put them into this kind of regulation. So I don't know, we maybe put it on the agenda in the future at a meeting or something.
Hey, Jacob, this is Gary. Is there some way you and your group could put to get to scope it out to put what you feel the requirements would be? So it would give Jay and Brian a starting point to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'll do that. Thank you. Yeah, I'll do that for sure.
That would make it easier if they have to go to the state so they can clarify and not
Mhm.
discriminate against any other groups.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have anything that we have not discussed?
I, DJ Crook, I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Um, I'm a aquaculture farmer, and I currently hold a mooring off Millway Beach, which, Brian and Jay helped me out with, and it was awesome. Only issue is just being able to get to it before the time it is bone dry. I have two vessels that I change or that I use intermittently. Um, it would be a huge it would be a huge plus, if we had access to certain mooring fields. So I was going to suggest, looking in maybe, I know the renting program doesn't look good in entirety, but maybe to a program where it goes to commercial fishermen, like we're talking about. Or I like all the ideas so far. It's just where us younger guys are looking to our future, and we're in this for a long time, and to have to wait 10 years, just to be able to have an opportunity uh, to not take someone's mooring, but to be able to use it if it is vacant would be a huge plus. Because it like an area like Scudder, where if there's a few vacant moorings, like it would also like help with some of the congestion that we experience at Blish or whatnot. If guys were able to rent those moorings that were in the commercial fishery, then you're talking 3 or 4 or 5 trucks and trailers also disappearing from Blish during that time. Once again, just an idea. Like, I appreciate what you guys are doing for the fishery. And I hope, we can get something out of this.
Yeah, thanks, DJ. The issue with this is picking and choosing and putting one person's priority over another's. These are all the
100%.
things that harbor master departments get called out on a state level. So we have our own regulations, but our regulations are vastly based off of the state regs. And
Yep.
that way, when people question us and they take it to a higher court, we have that backing at a state level because our regulations kind of mirror those. I think, what Gary suggested, I think what Jacob and you guys should do is, put together a proposal for, designated commercial moorings for the fishing industry and not for the boat yards. Maybe we can come up with a new type of classification that might have a separate wait list. Again, this is all new information for me.
Yep.
I want to work with you guys. That Millway mooring field is open. I know it's not ideal. Barnstable Harbor East is open. I know it's not ideal either. You do have deeper water there, but it's a little trickier to get to. North Bay, for example, very hard for me to give away a mooring in North Bay. I think Jacob, don't you have a boat close there? Aren't you like in the North Bay Channel with your
Yeah,
boat?
I'm in North Bay, yeah.
Yeah. So there are areas where if you did put your name on that list, we could permit you individually in a short period of time. You wouldn't be looking at like a 10 or 15-year wait compared to our other mooring fields. But I like this discussion and I feel for you guys. I want to see you have access to the water. But unfortunately, we just have a lot of people without integrity who spent decades lawyering up and finding loopholes in our regulations so that they could avoid the wait list. And we have to protect the integrity of that, first and foremost.
100%.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, any other public comment? Hearing none, for the harbor master staff, is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Committee members, any final comments? If not, we will adjourn and we have our meeting next week, again, an hour early, just remember. And the 25th, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. All righty. Well, thanks everybody for participating. A lot of good comments. And we will see everybody on the next meeting next week, 6 p.m., 25th.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.